As you know, if you've been listening to previous episodes, Dave and I asked our clients and past clients if there was one thing that we could talk about that would help you change the trajectory of your life or your business. What would it be? One of the things that rose to the top was, how do you know when it's time to challenge your beliefs?
Welcome to another session of Inside Outlooks. I'm Dave Gorham, a mindset coach with a passion to make you show up as a superhero.
And I'm Matt Wally, a mindset coach with a passion for being just a little bit cooler than Dave. Join us as we take a look inside so we can change the world around us. And away we go.
Well, from our perspective of coaching, your thoughts create your beliefs, your expectations, and your results. So if we look at beliefs, we're absorbing evidence in and around our world. That could come from role models. That could come from culture, heritage. That could come from education, knowledge. It's not coming from intellect or IQ, I should say, right? It's coming from really external evidence. Maybe there's an unconscious aspect to this. But from a coaching perspective, we're looking at beliefs that empower you and beliefs that limit you. So that's where your beliefs are being shaped. What are you thinking about from the inputs around you? And you're coming up with the belief that then shapes what you think should happen in the world. That's how I would describe it from our coaching frame.
Sure. Yeah, I think, and one thing that pops to mind for me too is that, when they talk about things like midlife crisis, and I don't know, last year I just kind of realized that I think a lot of midlife crisis is the day you wake up and go, wait a minute, is this stuff what I believe? Or is this what somebody told me to believe and I've never questioned it before?
Yeah, I
And
think
so
I've had like 4 midlife crises already.
yeah, me too. But I mean, I think that's right. And that's one time when you question the beliefs that you have, right? You're limiting beliefs because where did I get this belief from to begin with?
Mm-hmm.
Can't always identify the source because it may have come from when we were 4 years old and we may not remember certain things, an upbringing or kindergarten or whatever it is. But those beliefs are, if we don't sit and we act on our beliefs every day, but we don't realize what the beliefs are that we're acting on, or we don't take time to evaluate them. So
yeah. And your question was what are beliefs? That would be the first stage of answering their question.
How about a simple example?
I have a belief that if I engage you on a respectable way and I'm clear with my language, that you'll understand me and like me, right?
Okay.
So that's a belief.
Okay.
I'm challenged with that belief sometimes when people don't like me.
Well, or maybe you're challenged, and I'm not putting thoughts into your head, but
Mm-hmm.
just an idea is maybe you're challenged because you think people don't like you because of whatever their reaction or lack of a reaction, right? Because we start to assume what other people are thinking.
Agreed. And I think that goes to, maybe a couple steps forward on how do we challenge that belief. So if I'm confronted with that belief that I just have to be nice and everyone will like me, which would be an obnoxious example of what I pulled out, and I'm not having a good time in life, and I'm not resonating with people, and there's disdain coming, right? There's friction and frustration. That's the sign on what we said before about the belief. Well, that's a belief. I'm not having fun in life. There's frustration, resistance, drama. That's what to start to look at. It's not what am I doing, because doing is the result, right?
Sure.
It's walking that back to a belief. So if we're using my example, now we're looking at the belief just from it is what it is, not how did I get there. Once we understand it is what it is, and we can recognize, oh no, that's the belief. That's truly what I believe. And I'm living in frustration, then that's a limiting belief and that's what the word limiting, right? It limits my ability to live a fulfilled life for Dave, right? Not for Matt, but for Dave. If that's true, then we go to that next stage. What am I thinking about? That brings that up. And you're saying, maybe in your example was something may have happened when you were 4 years old, or you were taught something from a moral or ethical standpoint from parents or authority figures. What's that conversation?
It could be something that's not taught, but it's learned because, let's say, you do something as a child, you spill red Kool-Aid on your parents' white sofa, right? And you are just berated for it. That can cause a belief that goes on for a long time that not good enough, or that you always mess up, or it depends, because you could have a parent that would take that and remind the kid of that for months. That can form a belief that's a limiting belief, that I'm not capable of being anything but a screw up for a little kid, that lands as an adult in a way that we don't realize it's there. It's a belief, but we don't necessarily realize it's running our life.
And that's the idea of challenging that limiting belief. Brilliant. You're fucking brilliant.
Thank you.
That is the challenge here, right? So what happens when you do challenge that limiting belief? Well, what's the end result? What are you trying to do? I think we had another podcast that we were talking about habits, good and bad habits, and how do you move from a bad habit to a good habit. This is the exact thing. So go back and reference that podcast, because a belief is a habit. I have a habit of believing this. If it's limiting my belief, then I don't like what's going on. I'm creating frustration. Let's come up with a good belief. And it could be the opposite of what it is, or it could be a little bit more nuanced. Once you
So,
do that, that's the good habit.
so if I had a belief that my boss isn't happy with me, that he wants to fire me or something else, and then I sit down and I look at, why do I think that? And I evaluate it, and I realize I do everything that I'm asked to do and go above and beyond that. I do my job, my quotas are good, whatever the key performance indicators are all stellar. And then I go, okay, he has no reason to want to fire me. So I just challenged a limiting belief, right? Because that limiting belief is with me every time I see that person, every meeting I go to on Sunday night, thinking about the work week ahead. So if I can actually look at it and go, okay, where's this come from? Is there any fact behind it? Because I think that's what you and I deal with clients, and we deal with it in our own lives too. But is that we create stories all day long, and then we walk into them. And the stories we create aren't created from fact, they're created from imagination. Why not use the imagination to create stories we want to walk
Yeah.
into instead of stories we don't? And to
Yeah.
me, that's part of challenging limiting beliefs.
In the essence of the question, how do you know when it's time to challenge your belief, which we sort of talked
Dan,
around the subject. That answer is if you're feeling frustrated in your life, right? Spectrum of negative, positive. There's a spectrum there. So if you're on the 50% side that's negative, then it's time to challenge a belief and figure out what the belief is. You may come, to your point, you may come up to it and say, well, I don't really need to challenge that. I might need to change how I go about that or what I think about that. But if you're in the realm of frustration and you're tolerating something and you move to, all the way to a high negative piece of that, which would be having a horrific relationships with people because of your beliefs. That's when you know it's time to challenge those beliefs. From a coaching perspective, it's not the short-term gain of how do I change this now? It's a long-term gain of I do want to change it and better my life. So what are the steps to do that? So, for our audience, and to keep this short, like our podcasts are, or sometimes not short, uh, what do you think some tips are? I've got my own. What do you think some tips are that you can start the
well,
process of challenging your limiting belief?
I would say pretty much anytime our belief tells us we can't do something, it's a limiting belief. And I mean, obviously there are exceptions to that. Can I jump 18 feet high in the air and catch a football? No, right? But in reality, the things that other people can do, right? The things that are within the grasp of a human being, anytime we think we can't do something, I think it's worth looking at it as a limiting belief, because why do we think we can't do it?
Get more granular on that. So to really put some color to what you just said, you got to bring it out in the open. So curiosity, talk to a friend, talk to a family member, talk to a professional, talk to a colleague about it in the right frame of reference. So you could poke around and they can hear what you're saying from an objective position.
I mean, you can even start simpler and journal about it, right? And see
That was my next
your
one.
perspective. Journal about it, walk away from it, come back 24 hours later and read the journal and then see what you think.
Yep. You're looking for thoughts and feelings. So if your thoughts and feelings are in the negative space, then it's time to challenge your belief. I
Yeah.
think that I
And
think
if,
that helps the audience. I think that absolutely answers the question.
the one last thing I'll add to that is if you journal and then you come back 24 hours later and you look at the journal as if you're looking at a friend's journal who came to you, how would you answer them if they told you this? Because we're
I
always harder on ourselves than we are on our friends.
Yeah,
So
that's for me, that's a very coincidental and kind of fucked up, not so fucked up thing that just happened, because I've heard that 3 times now in the last week, not from you, from other people around about, if you want to know what to do, answer the question on how you would advise someone else, and there's your answer.
yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
that's great. So I appreciate everybody listening. Look forward to you listening again on, our next adventure.
Have a great day. Peace out.
Peace out.
Thanks for listening, and remember, your outside world is an inside job. See you next time. Hey, can we get 2 more over here? Make them doubles.